Chapter 15. The Weight of Optimism. The heavy canopy of the everfree forest seemed to press in on Twilight Sparkle, Starlight Glimmer, and Pinkie Pie as they marched swiftly along the overgrown path. Moving between the two unicorns was Phantom Haunt, the entity that had been masquerading as Scootaloo. She was still completely cocooned from head to hoof in Pinkie's heavy pink party streamers, held tightly aloft by a synchronized grip of lavender and teal telekinesis. "Just hang on a little longer, girls," Twilight said, keeping her eyes fixed on the path ahead. "Once we get this entity back to the place where it belongs and seal that rift, we can focus all our magic on finding the real Scootaloo. We aren't leaving her behind." From inside her bright pink bindings, Phantom Haunt let out a harsh, grating screech, thrashing uselessly against the magical grip. "You are fools. All of you complete fools," the entity screamed, her voice dripping with pure venom. "You will never find that miserable little filly. Do you honestly believe a child could survive this long inside the crushing blackness of Chaosville? By now, the horrors of our home would have tormented her completely out of existence." The entity let out a jagged, mocking chuckle that rattled the loose leaves on the trees. "And even if she somehow still exists, she would be a completely broken filly. A hollow shell with absolutely no mind left whatsoever." Pinkie Pie, who was bouncing along the edge of the path with a serious expression, suddenly popped up right next to the floating mummy. "Well, if she's broken, we can always just put her back together like a big, bright puzzle. I'm great at puzzles. Especially the ones with pictures of puppies on them." Starlight Glimmer offered a firm, confident nod, her horn flaring with a sharp spike of teal light to tighten the grip. "Pinkie's right, and besides, you don't know Scootaloo at all. She would never break that easily. She has faced countless hardships her whole life, like the fact that she's a Pegasus with wings who can't fly. But she has never let that truly bring her down. If she can get through that kind of pain with her head held high, she can get through whatever your twisted home has to throw at her." The entity laughed loudly, the sound echoing hollowly through the dark woods. "Oh, the optimism. Such beautifully misguided fools. Even if she has somehow survived, you have absolutely no idea what you are truly dealing with. But soon you will. And by the time you finally realize the truth, it will be far too late." Twilight paused for a fraction of a second, her brow furrowing as she looked over at her assistant. "Starlight, what do you think it means by that?" "Don't let it get to you, Twilight," Starlight replied quietly, keeping her stance rigid. "It's probably just trying to get under our skin to distract us from the mission." "Oh, how I wish I could be there," Phantom Haunt cruelly mocked, her shadowy form shifting beneath the streamers. "I wish I could be there to see the look on your pathetic faces when you realize what you're really facing and that you've already lost." Hearing those words, Twilight Sparkle drew herself up to her full height. As the Princess of Friendship, she stood straight and proud, her alicorn wings half unfurled as she looked directly into the bindings of the entity with absolute authority. "Friendship is magic," Twilight declared, her voice ringing clear and steady through the eerie quiet of the forest. "And it always defeats the evil. You may have your confidence, but we have friendship, and we are not going to fall to the likes of you. Because as long as we are together, absolutely nothing can stop us." The entity let out one final, cruel, mocking laugh. "A lot of good your friendship has done you against me and my friends. I cannot wait to watch your total downfall." Without discussing the matter any further, they finally stepped up to the edge of the infinity hole. The air around the jagged, swirling cosmic rift was hummed with an unstable energy. He grasped beneath their hooves, vibrating in slow motion. With a decisive, synchronized flick of their horns, Twilight and Starlight hurled the streamer-wrapped entities straight into the center of the yawning black void. Pinkie Pie didn't hesitate for a single second. Acting like she was about to go for a casual swim in a summer pond, she pinched her nose shut with one hoof, clamped her other hoof tightly over her muzzle, and jumped right into the hole after the monster. Twilight looked over at Starlight, a brave, determined smile breaking across her face despite the terrifying unknown waiting below. "Well," Twilight said softly, "looks like we're going in there again. But this time, we're bringing back the real Scootaloo." Starlight smiled back, her teal magic swirling brightly around her own hooves. You've got that right. Using their telekinesis to catch their own weight, the two unicorns slowly lowered themselves down into the depth of the anomaly, leaving the waking world behind as they descended into the dark of Chaosville. Chapter 16. The Serpent's Sugar. Inside the quiet sanctuary of the Carousel Boutique upstairs living quarters, Rarity was in a state of frantic, doting maternal panic. She hovered over the false sweetie Belle, her blue magic levitating a soft velvet blanket and gently tucking it around the filly's shoulders. "Are you quite certain you're all right, sweetie?" Rarity asked, her voice trembling with sisterly affection as she checked the filly's forehead with a hoof. "No chills? No lingering dread from that awful Pegasus monster?" Nightmare syndrome forced her muzzle into a soft, beautifully fragile smile, pitching her voice to that perfect, sweet innocence. "I'll be okay, Rarity. Just as soon as Twilight and the others bring Scootaloo back safe and sound." The entity playing Apple Bloom sat on the edge of the sofa, crossing her forelegs. She forced a thick, exaggerated country accent onto her tongue. "Me and Sweetie need to be there for our friend too, Miss Rarity. Why can't we go back to the forest? It just don't feel right sitting here." Rarity turned to her, her heart aching with pure, unquestioning sympathy. Looking at them, she truly believed with every fiber of her being that these were the two innocent fillies she had known and loved for years. "Oh, absolutely not, darlings," Rarity insisted, smoothing down Apple Bloom's fake pink bow. "We just got you back. The mere thought that we almost lost all three of you, well, it simply bears no thinking about. You must leave the rescuing to Twilight, Starlight, and Pinkie Pie. They can hoofle it." Nightmare syndrome shot a sharp, warning glare sideways at the Apple Bloom entity before quickly softening her expression as she looked back up at Rarity. "She's right, Apple Bloom. As much as we love Scootaloo, we're just little fillies. We're no match for the scary things that live in Chaosville." Rarity's heart completely melted at her sister's apparent maturity. "Oh, aren't you just the sweetest, most sensible little angel? Tell me, would you like me to brew you some hot chamomile tea, sweetie? To soothe your poor nerves. That always helps calm me down, doesn't it?" The false sweetie Belle purred, her eyes wide and sparkling. "Please, Rarity, I would absolutely love some." The fake Apple Bloom spoke up carelessly from the couch. "Just don't put too much sugar in mine, honey." Rarity froze, her hooves pausing midair. She turned her head slowly, raising a perfectly groomed purple eyebrow as she gave the yellow filly a long, questioning look. "Honey?" Apple Bloom never called her that. And more importantly, Apple Bloom practically lived on sugar. She usually begged for 3 extra cubes in her tea. The silence stretched for a tense second. Realizing the rippling baseline of suspicion, delusional misery quickly caught herself, widening her eyes and offering a rustic, sheepish grin. Rarity blinked, shaking off the sudden unease, attributing it to the trauma of the void. "Oh, of course, darling. Plain tea it is," Rarity said softly, turning her back and trotting out of the room toward the kitchen. The exact microsecond Rarity's back was turned and she was out of sight, the sweet innocence instantly vanished from the false sweetie Belle's face like turning off a light. Nightmare syndrome whipped her head around, her emerald eyes narrowing into dangerous, icy slits as she glared furiously at delusional misery. "Don't fall out of character yet, you idiot," she hissed under her breath, her voice a low, terrifying vibration. "We are this close to total victory. One more careless word and she will see through the mask." Delusional misery's smirk returned, her posture shifting from a rustic filly to a rigid, mocking posture. "My apologies, Nightmare syndrome. The pony tongue is tedious." Nightmare syndrome stood up from the blankets, her tiny hooves making absolutely no sound against the carpeted floor as she walked toward the kitchen doorway. "Now that the pink one and the mages are gone, it is time for us to begin the next phase of our plan. We are going to take these pathetic ponies out, one by one. All of their great protectors are currently trapped inside the blackness of Chaosville. They have left Equestria completely defenseless, and we have free reign." A low, jagged chuckle rippled through the filly's throat. "We will plunge this land into an eternal night. But not just an eternal night, an eternal nightmare. Delusional Misery's eyes glinted with a dark, malicious satisfaction. Oh yes, the waking world will burn. But tell me, who is our first victim? Where do we begin? Nightmare Syndrome looked back over her shoulder, a cold, calculating sneer twisting her muzzle. I think our very first victim should be the victim currently in the kitchen. Both entities let out a quiet, synchronized laugh of pure glee, their twisted minds perfectly aligned as the grand trap finally closed. Twilight and Starlight, the two most powerful magical barriers in Ponyville, were miles away under the earth, entirely blind to the viper they had left in the nest. Slowly, methodically, Nightmare Syndrome turned and made her way down the dimly lit hallway toward the kitchen. Inside the kitchen, Rarity was happily humming a light, cheerful melody. She was carefully pouring boiling water into 2 porcelain cups, completely wrapped up in her own relief. In her mind, her sister was safe in the other room, and soon, Twilight and Starlight would perform another miracle and bring poor little Scootaloo back home. Everything was going to be perfectly fine. She had absolutely no idea what was coming. Behind her, the silhouette of a small filly crept silently into the kitchen doorway. The shadows seemed to stretch and warp around her form, transforming the innocent shape of Sweetie Belle into a wicked, predatory monster. Nightmare Syndrome smirked, her emerald green eyes flashing with a faint, toxic purple aura as she locked her gaze onto Rarity's unprotected back. Slowly, her horn began to ignite, sparking not with a gentle green light, but with a crackling, smoky black magic that made the air in the kitchen turn suddenly ice-cold. She raised her head, ready to cast the strike that would begin the fall of Ponyville. Chapter 17: Ballast and Balance. Inside the dilapidated cabin, the heavy, malicious silence of Chaosville had been replaced by the soft, rhythmic rustling of turning pages. The real Scootaloo, Sweetie Belle, and Equestria's newest alicorn, Apple Bloom, were huddled together over a dust-covered desk, frantically scanning through the remaining ancient texts to find a way out of the pocket zone. But concentrated research was proving rather difficult, given Apple Bloom's current anatomical adjustments. Sensing a breakthrough on a page of dense runes, Apple Bloom let out a sharp gasp of excitement. The sudden spike of adrenaline traveled straight up her brow, and her new unicorn horn erupted in a wild, crackling burst of golden sparks that shot sideways across the desk. "Ow! Hey, Apple Bloom, watch it!" Sweetie Belle cried, jumping back and rubbing the singed tips of her white mane. "That hurts." Apple Bloom's ears pinned back flat against her head, her face turning as red as her mane. "I'm so sorry, sweetie. Didn't mean to, honest. An earth pony just isn't supposed to have a horn on her forehead." To emphasize her frustration, she gave an agitated shrug. The movement caused her massive, newly formed golden wings to instinctively flutter. The sudden, unpracticed lift launched her small body straight off the floorboards, sending her crown first into the wooden rafters with a dull thud. "Ouch! Sweet apple pies." Apple Bloom groaned, dropping back down to the floor on clumsy hooves. She reached up with a foreleg to rub her bruised head, but her hoof slammed directly into the sharp tip of her new horn. "Gosh, that hurts. I'm entirely off balance." Scootaloo managed a small, sympathetic grin, leaning against a stack of texts. "Well, Apple Bloom, you aren't an earth pony anymore. You're an alicorn." No, you don't have to keep reminding me." Apple Bloom sighed, looking down at her sides as her feathers rustled uncomfortably. Just don't know what to do with these things. Horns? Wings? My body wasn't built to carry all this extra hardware." Scootaloo puffed out her chest, giving her own small wings a proud, confident flap. "Hey, look on the bright side. I can help you learn how to fly. I mean, I've been through enough flying classes in my life to know all the theory and the mechanics. I can coach you through the wing strokes." And as for the magic, Sweetie Belle chimed in, her green eyes brightening as she stepped back toward the desk. "I've been learning with my sister Rarity for years. I know exactly how to guide you through basic telekinesis and horn channeling. I can teach you a lot. Besides, having an alicorn with us might come in a little hoofy when we finally step foot out of this cabin." The three crusaders looked at one another, the heavy terror of their near-fatal encounter with the mirror demon finally washing away. For the first time since they had fallen into this crazy, twisted dimension, the shadows didn't seem quite as dark, and things were actually starting to look up. A quiet, familiar giggle rippled through the trio, a sound that felt completely defiant against the backdrop of Chaosville. Just can't wait for Applejack, Big Mac, and Granny Smith to see me like this," Apple Bloom said, a bright, genuine smile returning to her muzzle. "They're gonna be absolutely shocked out of their horseshoes." Sweetie Belle burst into a giggle, clapping her front hooves together. "Oh, definitely. And knowing your family, the very first thing they'll have you do is fly up to the very top of the highest trees to get those hard-to-reach apples. Not to mention all that hard, tough earth pony groundwork," Scootaloo laughed, nudging Apple Bloom's golden flank. "They might just want you to lift up the entire harvest wagons with your magic instead of pulling them." The girls giggled together again, the domestic imagery of sweet apple acres making the void feel miles away. "I wonder what your princess name is going to be," Sweetie Belle mused, tapping her chin thoughtfully. "Because every Ollicorn is a princess, APPL. Bloom. It's a rule." Scootaloo tapped her hoof on the desk. "I bet she'll be something cool. Like Princess Appleseed." "No, she's going to be way better than that," Sweetie Belle corrected with an air of grand authority. "She's gonna be the princess of the soil." Another wave of happy giggles filled the dusty room as they returned to the books. Apple Bloom took a single step forward to look at a new diagram, but her balance shifted instantly. The weight of her new wings threw her off, causing her to stumble awkwardly onto her side with a soft groan. "I'm tellin' ya, it's like walkin' on stilts," Apple Bloom grumbled, dragging herself back up. "You'll get used to it," Sweetie Belle said gently, her smile softening into a look of fond longing as she turned a page. "I can't wait to get home and see Rarity. I bet she's so incredibly upset. She probably hasn't slept a single wink since we've been gone, pacing around the boutique and ruining her fabrics with tears." "Yeah," Apple Bloom agreed softly, her country drawl warm with affection. "My family, they've probably been searching every square inch of the orchard for me all this time, worried half to death. And Rainbow Dash is probably searching every inch of this forest," Scootaloo added, her eyes flashing with absolute pride. "She's not gonna give up on us. She never gives up. That's why she is so awesome." The three fillies shared a quiet, comforting moment, happy giggles rising as they imagined the exact moment they would be reunited with the ponies who loved them most. The thoughts of home provided a brilliant, protective armor against the ambient dread of the zone. Suddenly, Sweetie Belle's eyes locked onto a heavy, leather-bound tome at the corner of the desk. Her breath caught in her throat as her eyes scanned a passage written in a faint, glowing script. "Girls," Sweetie Belle whispered, her voice trembling with sudden excitement. "Take a look at this. I think it talks about the key to actually leaving Chaosville." Scootaloo and Apple Bloom instantly dropped their conversations. Huddling close together, their heads knocking lightly as Apple Bloom carefully managed her horn, the three cutie mark crusaders gathered tightly around the book and began to read the ancient text together. Chapter 18. The Forest of Shadows. The oppressive, inverted atmosphere of Chaosville settled heavily over Twilight Sparkle, Starlight Glimmer, and the multiple Pinkie Pies as their hooves touched down onto the invisible floor of the void. Held tightly within their magical grip was the streamer-bound form of Phantom Haunt, the entity that had stolen Scootaloo's face. Twilight stepped forward, her purple eyes flashing with royal authority as she confronted the captive monster. "Tell us how to find the real Scootaloo, right now." From inside her pink bindings, Phantom Haunt snarl sneered, her false muzzle twisting in defiance. "And why should I tell you anything, you pathetic princess?" Starlight Glimmer's horn instantly erupted in a blinding, aggressive spike of teal magic, the heat radiating off it making the cold air shimmer. "Because if you don't, I will personally make sure you never tell any pony anything ever again." The entity let out a sharp, grating laugh that rattled through the empty dark. "You don't scare me, fool. Your empty threats are nothing to me." Furious and running on pure exhaustion, Starlight violently thrust her head forward, unleashing a powerful, concentrated blast of raw offensive magic straight at the entity's face. But the moment the teal beam crossed the space between them, the erratic, physics-defying nature of the void took hold. The magic simply popped and dissipated into a harmless cloud of gray smoke, leaving the monster completely unharmed. Phantom Haunt laughed louder, her tone dripping with mocking glee. "Is that all you've got? Oh, look at me. I am absolutely shaking in Scootaloo's little hooves." Starlight practically growled, her teeth gritting as she bitterly remembered the rules of this bizarre, backwards dimension. Standard equestrian combat magic was completely unstable here. Pinkie Pie, however, understood the chaotic laws of the cosmos perfectly. Exploiting the logic of the pocket zone, Pinkie suddenly blurred, splitting her own physical form into a dozen identical, fully functional Pinkie Pies. The army of pink earth ponies instantly began bouncing in frantic, gravity-defying circles around the streamer-wrapped entity, giggling uncontrollably and chanting in a high, chaotic rhythm. "Playtime! Playtime! Super-duper fun time!" The Pinkies cheered in unison. The entity's joy tightened, her expression twisting into deep annoyance as the pink blurs swarmed her, though she remained physically unaffected by the display. Twilight stepped between Starlight and the prisoner, trying a different tactic. "Listen to me. If you tell us exactly how to find her, we will let you go. You can have your freedom back in this void." Phantom Haunt rolled her eyes with an exaggerated groan. "Let me go? Please, I can easily just wait you out if I want to. Your mortal minds will snap long before I ever get tired of these ribbons. But I will tell you what. I will tell you how to find that stupid little filly if there is even anything left of her to find." All the duplicate Pinkie Pies let out a loud, synchronized giggle, flipping upside down in midair. "Where you see a massive bunch of nightmare creatures gathered together," the entity whispered, a cruel, plotting smile stretching across her muzzle, "that is probably exactly where your precious little filly dwells. Because we are naturally drawn to intense fear. It is our absolute favorite food, and she has been cooking for days." Starlight lowered her horn, her eyes narrowing into cold slits. "Thank you for the tip. But we aren't letting you go until we actually find her safe and sound." With the entities still suspended in their synchronized telekinetic hold, the trio began their grueling journey into the upside-down forest of Chaosville. The gnarled, purple-leafed trees drifted lazily above their heads like uprooted seaweed, their roots clutching at the empty sky as the search party scanned the distorted horizon for a mass gathering of nightmare creatures. Twilight looked back over her shoulder at the army of pink ponies, bouncing erratically along the path, her head throbbing from the noise. "Pinkie, please pull yourself back together." One of the Pinkie Pies bounced right up to Twilight's muzzle, grinning radiantly. "Oh, but Twilight, we were just about to play patty cake." Chapter 19. The Sun and the Shadow. Back in Ponyville, inside the draped and quiet sanctuary of the Carousel Boutique, the air was entirely too still. Nightmare Syndrome stood positioned directly behind Rarity's turned back. Wearing the physical form of Sweetie Belle, the entity allowed a cruel, false smirk to cut across her borrowed face. Her horn flared with a cold, aggressive surge of dark, fully charged magical energy, the volatile power humming with an absolute readiness to blast the unsuspecting fashionista into oblivion. But just as the dark aura reached its apex, a sharp, sudden knock rattled against the heavy wooden door of the boutique. Instantly, the malicious energy vanished, snapping backward into her horn. The entity's posture shifted in the blink of an eye, melting back into a picture-perfect, entirely innocent look. "Rarity, do you want me to answer the door?" she called out, her voice dripping with sweet, sisterly affection. Rarity, completely oblivious to the lethal threat that had just vanished from behind her neck, turned from the counter with a warm, elegant smile. "Sure, sweetie. Thank you. The tea will be ready in just a moment." Nightmare Syndrome exchanged a quick, sharp look with delusional misery, the entity currently parading around in the false form of Apple Bloom, and together, the two fakes made their way into the front foyer. When they swung the door open, however, both entities froze. Standing on the threshold, framed by the bright morning light, was Princess Celestia of all ponies. The sight heavily startled Nightmare Syndrome. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She was absolutely not prepared to deal with the Princess of the Sun forcing her panic down. She quickly summoned her best, most pitch-perfect Sweetie Belle voice, widening her eyes in faux wonder. "Princess Celestia, is something wrong?" Princess Celestia offered a gentle smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Any pony who knew the Diarch well could immediately tell that something deeply serious was bothering her. "Nothing is wrong, dear," Celestia answered, her regal voice carrying a distinct, heavy strain. "I just need to talk to your sister." The fake Sweetie Belle smiled brightly, stepping aside to clear the entryway. "She's right in the kitchen making us some tea." Beside her, the fake Apple Bloom spoke up, leaning forward with an enthusiastic, country-style grin. "She sure is. And I bet she would love to see ya, Your Highness." Princess Celestia offered a hurried nod of gratitude and brushed past them, her long, ethereal mane trailing through the air as she made her way into the kitchen. "Princess Celestia." Rarity gasped, nearly dropping a porcelain teacup as the solar monarch entered the room. "To what do I owe this distinct honor? I was just brewing a fresh batch of chamomile." "Thank you, Rarity, but I am afraid this is not a social call," Celestia interrupted softly, her composure fracturing just enough to reveal her rising dread. She stepped closer to the white unicorn, her voice dropping to a serious, urgent whisper. "I am here because of Princess Luna. She was patrolling the Dream Realm last night, performing her duties as she always does, when suddenly, her aura completely vanished. The last known location her magic could be traced to was right here, in this specific area of Ponyville." Rarity gasped, her hoof flying to her chest. "Oh my word. Luna's aura just disappeared." "Yes," Celestia confirmed, her eyes scanning Rarity's face with desperate intensity. "I am asking every pony in the immediate vicinity, have you had a dream recently? Have you seen or spoken to Luna in the dreamscape within the last few hours?" While the two talked in the kitchen, Nightmare Syndrome stood just outside the doorway, listening to every single word. A dark, triumphant smirk stretched across her face. She turned her head toward Delusional Misery, her eyes gleaming with sudden, sinister inspiration. "This is better than I could have ever planned it," she whispered maliciously. The fake Apple Biello. OM blinked, looking entirely unconvinced as she kept her voice strictly down. "How on earth is this a good thing? That's the Princess of the Sun. She is literally the absolute worst thing possible for a nightmare entity to encounter." The fake Sweetie Belle let out a cruel, hushed, dark laugh, her shoulders shaking with quiet glee. "Because, you fool," Nightmare Syndrome hissed, her voice dripping with venom, "now we can get rid of her first. We can take out the solar protector right here, and then we can finally destroy that annoying little sister of mine." She emphasized the word sister with pure, mocking disdain. Slowly, silently, Nightmare Syndrome turned back toward the kitchen doorway. Her tiny hoofs made absolutely no sound against the floorboards as she began her deliberate, predatory approach. Inside the room, Princess Celestia and Rarity remained deeply locked in their frantic conversation, their backs turned completely to the threshold. They had no idea what kind of darkness was creeping up right behind them.